Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it's with genuine sadness that the Green Party is opposing the Vulnerable Children's Bill. The Green Party and its MPs are absolutely passionate about making New Zealand a great place to grow up for all of our children. We believe that the state has a key role in keeping children happy, healthy and safe. But in order to do that, the government must be prepared to do what our children need it to do to keep them happy, healthy and safe. Human rights are a government's obligation and not just a good idea. The national government had that opportunity. Its white paper on vulnerable children generated a huge volume of submissions from experts and workers on the ground who told ministers what children needed them to do in order for them to be able to grow up healthy, happy and safe. But faced with all of that evidence, the government closed its eyes and then closed its heart. Today we saw the Social Development Minister admit to Parliament for the second time this week that she was unaware of research showing that children in the most economically deprived families were 5 times as likely as children in the least deprived families to die from sudden unexplained death in infancy. 1 baby dies each week in New Zealand from conditions associated with low income. You might think that the minister responsible for child welfare would make it her business to be aware of the health impacts of poverty. Instead, she remains willfully ignorant, and that is outrageous. The thing is, we know, and this is backed up by history as well as current research, that if we guarantee the essentials, then we will guarantee the opportunities. Our institutions have been teaching for years this concept of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And at the base of basic needs are our physical needs for warmth, rest, water, shelter and safety. They are universally, I thought, except for the jeering from the other side, the understanding of our basic needs. The Green Party wants to ensure all of our children have their basic needs met, and we want to address the causes of vulnerability so that all of our children can thrive. That's why we put child poverty on the political agenda last term and have been continuing through this term. And that's also why we've been working so hard to put domestic and sexual violence back on the political agenda. Poverty is created and can be eliminated by government policy. Child poverty and deprivation escalated in the 90s due to government policy. It's not out of our control. And we continue to unashamedly call for action every single chance we get on this issue, because it is at the heart of the welfare of our children. And while violence isn't quite so easily amenable to government intervention, and no one thing is going to solve it, we can still significantly reduce it. This bill is not going to do that. Over 17% of children in New Zealand regularly go without the essential items like fresh fruit and veggies, shoes that fit, their own bed and warm, dry houses. Think about that for a moment in this land of plenty. And more than one child dying every single week from illness related to poverty in this country of plenty. When I was working at Otago University Medical School, the Scandinavian head of paediatrics who had recently arrived left her position early because she'd thought she was coming to a developed country and she could not match that expectation with the prevalence of what she considered third world diseases all around her. The levels of disease in our children because of government policy is shocking. And it is a national shame, and I use national in both meanings. Violence is a major issue of ours in this country as well. It's estimated that more than a quarter of New Zealand children are affected by domestic violence, that between 1 in 3 and 5 girls are victims of sexual violence, and between 1 in 6 and 1 in 10 boys are sexually abused. And there are much higher levels of risk for children with disabilities and other minority groups. So, in this week we heard again from the Owen Glenn report about how our system is failing on the most basic level to provide protection and safety for our children and pathways out of violence. They are not existing for many people in this country, and the state is complicit in blocking people's pathways out of safety in actual fact. And the government's response to those experiences from agencies on the ground is to say, oh look, we're onto it, we've reformed the family court, we're doing this, when in actual fact those reforms are undermining the protections of those very people they purport to care about. So you put those two realities of poverty and violence together, and it's no surprise that the government got around 10,000 submissions in response to its call. How amazing. So many people in this country care about these issues. There was so much hope and time put into these submissions, and I want to thank New Zealand for that. But when we now look at the legislation that has come to us in this House out of that process, I feel genuinely angry. This government had the chance to respond appropriately to those submissions. The government could have created a Child Poverty Act that would have set targets and measures for eliminating child poverty at the base of the welfare of our children. They could have established a Minister for Children to advocate for children within Cabinet. The government could have reformed our family court, child, youth and family and justice systems, and ensured that there was funding for the support agencies who are so crucial in the response and the safety of children, to address the myriad of issues that are compromising their safety at the moment. And what did they do? You know, this bill is not any of those things. You know, I acknowledge that both of those actions, those bills that could have come to us, would have been big calls. But you know, I think the tenor of the submissions and all the reports we've had over the years into these issues would have justified a big call. And what this government has given us instead is a bill, and I'm going to now reference the Parliamentary Library's analysis of this bill, that says that it is two main things that this bill is going to do. One, it's going to create child harm protection orders. Well, that turned out to be a bad idea and has been taken out of the bill. And two, it's going to institute safety checking for children's workers. So two big ideas in response to the appalling rate of death and poverty of our children. And it boils down to safety checking for children's workers that we have no evidence is needed, is going to make any difference, and is going to be coming out of the pockets of our community organisations who are struggling to provide the absolutely essential social services to protect the lives of our children. Excuse my emotion, Mr. Speaker, because New Zealand deserves more than that. We are a country of plenty. We have the evidence from the experts, from our community, from our children, telling us what we need to do to make a difference for them. And yet, this is all we're given. It's an absolute travesty, and I am disappointed in this House that we could not deliver what our children need.
I call Alfred Naro.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to rise and take a call in the third reading, but also to take the opportunity to balance the conversations and the debate in this House. Mr. Speaker, there's been lots of talk about the intent of the bill, but I want to just bring